Well, Dustin, if you want to share a little bit about your work background or something personal, anything you want to share to get this going.
Yeah. So my name is Dustin Barron. I am the owner of LEI Home Enhancements here in Arizona. I am a franchise owner in a corporation of approximately 30 cities across the United States. I started with LEI back in 2016 as a marketing representative. I have worked my way up to a franchise owner here in Arizona. We opened the branch in May of 2018 with the idea and understanding of becoming one of the top leading companies for windows and doors, and have now evolved our company to offer also solar, and here in the next few months we'll be offering home inspections as well. So I'm 37, married, have 2 kids, and life couldn't be any better. So
That's amazing. That was a great intro, by the way. I love it.
well, thank you.
Yeah.
I like long walks on the beach and fireplaces with nice books. So
Hell yeah. That's awesome. So you said the company there's a lot to unpack. I like it. You said the company has grown to offering other services, and you're now the franchise owner for the entirety of Phoenix.
yes, sir.
What would you say has been like the key factors of growing the business?
The biggest key factor, I think, when it comes to growing business starts with the mindset. That's been one of the hugest portions of really creating the business that I have. To be 100% honest, when I first started this, I had no intention of becoming a franchise owner. I really had no intention of going anywhere further than just the sales position. One of the beautiful things about LEI is that the business model is designed to be more of a business ownership development model. And so with the understanding of entering into the realm of LEI, everybody starts out as a marketing rep. And from the marketing rep position, being able to master that position, you have the ability to get promoted and move up the ranks. And so going from marketing rep to field manager and then eventually the sales rep, I was pretty happy about being at that point. It wasn't until I was inspired by my CEO to look further beyond what I was doing to see something that I wasn't at the time really ready to look at. And that was really being able to provide a lifestyle, not only for myself, but for my family and the future of my family, creating a legacy almost with what I am doing currently. And so once my eyes were open to the fact that essentially what I was doing within the Denver market, I could be able to replicate and do here in Arizona, it was a no-brainer. You see the difference in terms of the monetary aspect of upgrading your position, similar to the value of upgrading your car or your technology or whatever, right? And that was my first point, was saying, okay, I can actually build something that not only I will be proud of, but also that I can give to my children as something that they can be proud of as well. And so, the biggest opportunity generator, the biggest obstacle, the biggest challenge, and the biggest reward is all the mindset, right? Because if you really go into a venture, or me, I understand that if I go into a venture on a defensive mode or thinking that it's not going to work out, there's going to be all sorts of reasons why it's not going to work out. But similar to this, it was me putting my trust into God and understanding that there was a calling here that I needed to follow. And really looking at everything as an opportunity, not only to build a great business, but then to better myself as a person. It's been just a wonderful adventure. Obviously there's days where I really would rather not have, right? But at the end of the day, when you look at everything all together, it's a point of pride, you know what I mean? It's a point of like, this is the mountain that I've climbed, and it's pretty awesome. So, yeah.
You're so good at this.
Just give me a mic, man.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back a little bit, but when you first mentioned So you said everyone starts at the marketing
Yeah.
position. Why do you think the company structured it that way?
So my company is a Christian-based company, right? So the beautiful thing about the company, and something that I identified very quickly on, was the fact that it really centered itself on Christian morals and values and principles. We're not a company that you don't have to worry about us coming in and saying, well, we're going to sell you some windows, and you say, well, I'm not really interested, so we're going to say, well, do you have time for Jesus? But it's more in the actions that we are doing, right? It's in the behaviors, the thought patterns, the actions that we take with ourselves, with our customers, and with our people, that really drives the vision of the business. And within that same mindset, what it really came down to is the least of these come first, right? And biblically, we understand that it's not the strong, it's not the people that are at the top that go first. It's the weakest among these. And so we really took a foundational approach to this. We understand that when people invest their time, their energy, their blood, sweat, and tears into something, the more that they put that sweat equity into it, the more that they own it, and the more that they're going to put their all into it. And so when we look at somebody coming in, for example, I just had my last round of orientators graduate on Friday, and most of the orientation is centered around instilling a vision of success. It's instilling a vision of what can be, a potential for yourself to be able to realize. But in order to be able to realize that potential, you have to be able to have the fundamentals down, right? You have to walk before you crawl. And so that's the way that we operate with our business. In order to be able to sell windows, for example, you have to understand how we got to the point of being at the table, right? Because that's probably the most difficult part of the whole process, is having the customer give you the time of day, and then the rest of it is about building that relationship. So we teach our people how to be able to buy 30 seconds at the door, because that aspect of creating a first impression, the right first impression, and being able to deliver a presentation within that time frame, and also overcoming things like objections and just the aspect of people. Once you can master it in the smaller sense, then what we can do is take that skill set and increase the potential of it to be able to utilize it from a 30-second to 2-minute conversation to something that's going to generate anywhere from 1 to 4 hours worth of conversation. So we want to be able to teach our people to crawl, and then not only for their benefit, but as they then go from marketing rep to field manager, they have to be replaced. We have to find somebody to replace them, right? And ultimately, if I could, I would be in all places at once, right? Because that would ensure that I would do everything the way that I wanted to do. But the second best option is to be able to create people that are just like me so that I can be in that position. So the goal is that as a manager, I train my marketing rep to walk the path that I want them to walk and the way that I want them to walk, so that they're walking that way. So when they get promoted to the field manager and I can then focus on my sales position, they're operating as a field manager, and then they're in turn training the marketing reps that are below them or that they are in charge of to be able to walk in that same path. And then ultimately, once they get that mastery position, it just goes all the way up to where I am at this point as a franchise owner. So, the end game is that once you're able to see, or once you cross that finish line, so to speak, of becoming a franchise owner or wherever you're at, you can then turn a 180 and then build your own business from the very beginning. So no matter where somebody is, you could be here, you could be in Colorado, you could be anywhere across the country, and now you have a map and a business plan. You know what I'm saying? We teach people how to fish so that they can in turn teach others how to fish, So the idea of developing developers.
That's great. I like that. You also mentioned that it's a Christian-based company. Were you always religious?
I've always been a very spiritual person. When it really comes, when I look at my life, the theme of my life, the overarching theme has been a search in finding God, a search in finding the truth in that, and a search in finding my relationship with God. It started at a very young age. Long story short, right? It was, a traumatic experience of just the breaking up of my family, which led me to question the family above us, right? Because everything flows downward. And over the course of my life, that was one of my more serious processes, was trying to figure out the truth behind it. I've done studies in a variety of major religions, a variety of smaller religions, a variety of different pathways and walks. And the thing that I've really come to understand is that regardless of your path, ultimately the two main lessons that God wants us to embed into our lives is loving God and putting God first, and treating others as though we would want to be treated, right? Love thy neighbor like yourself. If we were to create a life based on those two fundamental principles, the world around us would be a much more wholesome, a much more loving and caring world. I think that we end up getting too lost in the weeds with a lot of stuff, and those conversations can be fun, but similar to what we've seen over the recently, once we get too lost in the weeds, it almost splits our personalities. It almost allows us to not have a strong foothold in what we would consider reality, right? So in the sense of what I live for is I live to exemplify God, and I live to exemplify my walk with God, and to be able to really create a life that is the understanding that while I am having this experience for God, so are you. And so we are speaking to God when we are talking to each other. And when we come across people and interact in that way, at least for myself, it allows me more grace, it allows me more empathy, and it allows me the ability to love unconditionally. And so I do everything I can to be able to exemplify that in all aspects of my life, and to really give God the glory when it comes down to it, good, bad, and everything. So
how do you think, in your case, spirituality tied into your work, and how has that impacted your business?
That's a great question. Because I think for me specifically, there's a spiritual aspect in everything. Life is not without spirituality, right? Life is not without God, because life is God, right? From the very beginning of my journey within LEI, it was an understanding of all of this. And it was a bunch of different things that have come together for me to see that it's all interconnected. God is that life force that connects and binds us together, whether it's you and me, us and, this podcast, the people that will be listening to this, the trees outside, the air we breathe, it's all interconnected. How that plays into my business is that it really comes across with the idea of who we are supposed to be when we are exemplifying God, right? We are supposed to have a servant attitude, right? Something that has come up a lot in this last week is conversations about servant leadership and what that actually means. For me, what that means is, the idea and understanding that in order for me to accomplish the mission that I'm here to accomplish, I'm not going to be able to do that by myself. I need to be able to accomplish this mission with my team, with people around me. John Maxwell talks a lot about leadership through development, and talks a lot about leadership through servitude. And, I take a lot from his teachings, because in all reality, when they work, you might as well, right? The whole idea is that when we can come across the people in our lives, whether it's our employees, our customers, our family, or our friends, if we can come across in a position of how can I help you in your situation, that's going to help resolve my situation, right? Because we are cohesively working together to be able to solve a problem that involves both of us. If it's in the workplace, right? If my employees are not satisfied, for example, they're not going to work the way that I need them to work. They're not going to be at an optimized level. If I can take the time to help resolve whatever issues they are, and they could be something as menial as just a motivational talk, it could be something like policy, it could be something like customers or whatever. But when I can put myself to the disposal of my team to make sure that they're at their best, then going back to our previous conversation, it goes right back into that line of I don't have to be everywhere at once. If I serve my team in a correct way, and I'm able to provide them with all the tools for success and show them how to use those tools, then the idea is that when I'm away to develop or do what I'm doing, they're doing exactly what I've trained and taught them to do. So the aspect of being a servant and my spirituality, I guess, it really comes into the understanding of the best way to work together is to work together and do it without any intention of having something given back to you,
Yeah.
selflessness, I guess.
Definitely. So like as I'm getting, a little bit older, adding years and reaching my mid-20s, and something that I've noticed more, and I feel like I've been talking to a lot of my friends or, coworkers or whoever, is that the importance of family.
Yeah.
I think it's something that I've been thinking about more.
Yeah.
And it's been more of a topic of conversation for me. So I want to ask you, for you, how has having your family, having kids, changed you? Even just not business, but how has it changed your view of the world, or has it given you more strength? Like, what has that journey been like?
You're gonna make me cry, bro. It's the best journey in the world, man. It truly is one of the most beautiful journeys that one can actually take. Being a dad opens up the world when it comes to purpose. Before having kids, there was a lot more in terms of the selfish gains in terms of life, right? Your focus, your perspective, my perspective really was on more so just digging myself out of the holes that I created for myself. I had a life led by more instant choices, I don't want to say instant gratification, but that's really, without better terms, that's probably the best way to put it, right? Making my own poor decisions. And so, most of my 20s were really about digging myself out of the hole that I had built, right? And recreating a life that I wanted to live and be able to be proud of. When I met my wife, Jen, she honestly changed everything for me. When she came into my life, I was at a point where I really didn't have a whole lot of answers. I didn't have a whole lot of direction, and I was really trying to figure out, on an emotional side where I was, on a spiritual, all of that kind of stuff. And, with her entering my life, it was really about going back to the understanding that life is about the relationships that you build. And she really helped me to see that the areas that I was missing out on, and that was really the true connection between people and understanding how important the deeper connections are between people. It's amazing just looking at the last 7 years and the journey that both of us have taken individually and together, and how proud I am of our family, of her, of myself. It's crazy, man. It's crazy to think that where we were 7 years ago and where we are now, and all of that just came crashing to a whole different level when the kids came into play. We were blessed with the ability, we decided that we wanted to have a family, so we were able to have a family on our time. We were blessed with the ability to have a home birth, which, everybody has their own opinions on it. It was one of the most magical, amazing, and perfect things for both of my girls and us that I've ever experienced. I got to not only be there for the whole thing and be a coach and be a guide and be support, but I got to catch my kids. I got to be the first one to hold them. It was one of the most amazing things in the world. The impact that it made for me was subtle and immediate, right? Something I always knew I wanted to be a dad. When I was a kid, they ask you what you want to be when you grow up, and all of my friends, everybody has their different things, firefighters, superheroes, whatever. I just wanted to be a dad. I didn't really have a career aspiration, so that's why I'm in Windows, right? But I wanted to be a dad, and so when that process was fulfilled, it was a very comfortable thing for me to step into. At the same time, it really opened my mind to the fact that, like I was talking about before, it's not just about the 6-month track. It's not just about what's happening now. It's about looking at the world in terms of legacies, in terms of the impact our decisions make on a regular basis. Something as simple as, the way that we decide to explain something to our children has an impact on the rest of their life, bro. And it can be kind of scary because, I don't know if I'm pretty sure it's a common thing, but parent guilt is a real thing. Most mornings I'm waking up beating myself up over the things that I didn't do yesterday with my kids and things like that. But, the goal is to be able to be the best person possible for yourself and for your kids, because, they are watching you. They are your mirror, to a 10th degree. And it's amazing to watch as the things that I try to build and do better on, I can see the impacts of when I'm making the right kind of choices versus the immediate impulsive choices, right? And I watch my oldest and my youngest and how they react and how they interact with life. And, I can definitely say, I don't know if it's true, but I feel like, my kids are a good gauge of how well I'm doing, I often wonder, am I, those existential questions, am I doing right? Am I doing good enough? Am I good enough? All of those kind of things. And I look at my kids and I watch how they interact with themselves, each other, and the world around them. And I can at least take some pleasure in knowing that I'm at least teaching them the right ways. Yeah. So it's good, man. It's good.
I heard a quote that, and this kind of feeds into all the, because I always look at these opportunities as just me to learn something.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky and fortunate that I have a lot of people around me that has experienced life a little bit more than I have.
Yeah.
And I get to gather all this information before I get to step into anything, either that was business or relationships or anything. And I'm just constantly trying to gather. And I heard this quote about a guy can only be selfless once he has kids. And I was like, I've never thought about that, right? I was like, that's very interesting that one, just like biologically, we might be hardwired to a degree that, we're more selfish, and we become significantly selfless once we have kids. And when I was hearing your story, I was like, that was very interesting to hear your perspective on things.
Yeah.
Do you learn from your kids?
Every day. Every day.
What kind of stuff do you see them and be like, oh my goodness, it's something that I've forgot, that maybe something that when I was a kid I used to, it came naturally, but now that I'm an adult, we have these walls, we have these rules, we have these things. What are some, remind me, what are some things that you might have looked at your kids and that they surprised you with?
Yeah, just I guess, the aspect of selflessness, real quick. I don't know if I agree with it 100%, just because I do know that there is, there's acts and people, there's people all over the place that give up their life willingly for the benefit of others or for the benefit of the well-being of the good. But I can also agree in that sense in terms of selflessness, of understanding there is a difference between the love for your partner and the love for your children, especially when that is your priority, because it is the last bite of your favorite cupcake, or the last bit of energy that you didn't think you had, just to be able to play with them before they go to bed, those kind of things. And those are the important things. Those are what matter, you know what I'm saying? But what I've learned from my kids, the easy stuff is patience and empathy and being childlike, right? They're great. They're a mirror, bro. They're a complete mirror to who you are as a person, because they're watching you, My kids watch my wife and I, and my kids watch how we interact with each other, how we interact on the phone, how we interact in the, everywhere on a regular basis. And that's formulating their opinion and the way that they're going to respond. And so I know that when, I'm not going to say it's an if then, but, when my kids are acting out of turn or acting out of line, and it's not something to do with the well-being, are they hungry? Are they tired? Are they sick? If it's coming down to the fact that that's just their normal method, right? Then there's obviously, they're having to pick it up from somewhere, and the accountability has to come from us as parents. In order to be able to create a society that we want to live in, we have to start first with the kids that we are raising, right? And so the kids become a weather bell for the parents, right? And any parent that's willing to take a serious look at that, can understand and see that the reflection of themselves is sitting right there in their little carbon copy version. But even like today, one of the best lessons that I've learned is that, with children is you never lose your child, you never lose your inner child. Having a bit of a morning start, and I'm in the middle of all of my work this morning and just like can feel the rev up of the adrenaline of the day, and just like really getting into a mode of like, semi-fight or flight just because of the stress of everything, right? And my kids have this this Barbie song that they play. It's called Make a New Day. And it's one of the cutest songs in the world, right? Because it's all about restarting your day. And they played it on today, and it was just like they come over and they start dancing and pull me out. And it was like for the moment, it was all of us just dancing and having a good time. And it's just remembering that, like, just because society tells us that we were confined to this box, right? We have this thing that we're supposed to do every single day. We have these clothes that we're supposed to wear. We have this thing that we're supposed to act or blah, 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 or whatever, that it's okay to step aside from that and just say, you know what, today I'm just going to enjoy myself. Today I'm going to be present. And kids are a great reminder of the benefit and how important it is to remain present, because that's the only thing we really have, So I think that's one of the biggest lessons that my kids remind me of on a regular basis,
Damn, kids are a trip.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, it really is a game changer, man. Like, I can't say that like the minute I saw my girls, like the darkness was lifted and all, but it really, similar to like, so I joined a different men's group here, officially about a month and a half, 2 months ago. And since joining this group, my first question was like, what does it mean to be this, right? Like, the first thing I thought, like when I've gotten a BNI, it's like, what does it mean to be a successful BNI member? And I tried to emulate that, right? And it was the same thing with parenting and all of that. But like with this men's group, I was like, well, what does it mean? And there was no definite answer, right? And so I started searching in through all of the information that I have and all of the research and all of the studies and talking with my mentor and all of these things. And there wasn't really an answer to that question. But the answer is the life that you start to cultivate when you're focusing on the virtues, when you're focusing on the values, when you're focusing on some of the characteristics of what it means to be an upright man, right? It's the same thing with kids. Like, I started looking at what it means to be a good dad, what I would have wanted to have in a good dad, what a good parent or father figure means, like what it's supposed to be, right? And there's no real definite answer. It's just like a kind of an abstract idea. And I saw that with each step or each month that passed along, I started growing into that and becoming that, you know what I'm saying? So that now it's just a part of me that was always there. It wasn't like it was an identity that I had to now put on like I've done in the past. It was just watching a part of my inner self growing and coming to the forefront. I'm no longer Dustin the adult or whatever, I'm Dustin the father, and that's my most important mission, but.
You said that from a younger age,
Mm-hmm.
you wanted to be a dad.
Yeah.
I feel like there was like one or two kids in the classroom that always kind of said that, but why do you think that was? Because just subconsciously, that was like, you felt that way?
Honestly, man, it's kind of a crack up because, like, I don't have a lot of strong ties to memories beyond a certain time frame. I gotten into like a near fatal accident and kind of wonked a bunch of stuff, right? So like my childhood up to a certain point is very spotty and sporadic. But yeah, man, I don't know. Like it's the funniest thing. I just remember it's one of those constant things growing up as a kid. Like I never really had a direction as far as what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be. I always thought being famous would have been cool. Like I had this dream when I was younger. This was, giving my age, right? But back when like the real world was a big thing, like I had this dream of once I was 18, I was going to throw my video up and become like, super famous on, the internet or whatever it was, entertainment, right? But even that wasn't even something that was very important to me because obviously I didn't pursue it, you know. I just knew that the constant was that I wanted to have a family. And I think those are one of those callings, like one of those God callings, you know. I think we all come down here with, you know, call it a soul contract or whatever you want to put it together. But there's an agreement that we make with our divine, you know, the divine source, our God, you know. And when we get here to this playground, you know, our job is to figure out, number one, what that is, and number two, to exemplify that in the best way possible. And I think that might have just been my calling, you know what I'm saying? Like, kind of going along the lines of a quote, what was it? You know, funny enough, Tupac said that, you know, I may not be the mind that changes the world or the fire that changes the world. He goes, I may not be the mind that changes the world, but I'm going to be the spark that ignites the fire. And that was the way I looked at it. You know, it's like, I may not necessarily be the person that's going to change the world itself, but I'm going to be the spark to help do that for the better. And I see that with my kids, and I see that with the impact that I make on them. And yeah, man, I mean, if that's my only mission in life, then so be it. And I'm totally happy for it, man. Totally content with it, you know.
I want to go back to a little bit about the work, adding new team members to the prospecting group. What were some difficult things that you encountered?
You know, I think the most difficult thing when it comes to building a business is also the most rewarding thing about it, right? It's the people that are involved. People are a very fluid product, a very fluid variable, which is one of the reasons why I enjoy sales and marketing so much, right? It's because every interaction is completely different. You know, they've broken people into personality groups or different customer types, and you know, you can really condense and compartmentalize, right? But we see in everyday life the problem with condensing and compartmentalizing and how bad it is. But once we understand that people are just fluid, right? Every day is different. Emotions range on a whole different kind of spectrum. And, you know, the beautiful thing about anything dealing with people is being able to freely interact with that, and almost like a surfer, figuring out how to ride that wave back into shore. But that comes with its challenges, right? You know, finding the right kind of people for the positions that we have. You know, sales is a highly lucrative industry. It's also a very high turnover because of the aspect of rejection. One of the things we hear more than anything else is the word no. I think I've heard no more than my own name, which is kind of crazy because I used to get yelled at quite often throughout my childhood and everywhere else, right? So the obstacle comes from finding the right kind of people to be able to then develop into the right kind of leaders that we are looking for. And so that, you know, that employs being able to teach them under the ideas of our missions and our values. You know, we are looking for leaders that exemplify love, servitude, humility, greatness, a unity aspect within the team environment, and understanding that it is a cohesive, collective work to create success, and it's not the success of one person, right? So the obstacle is finding people that that have the drive and the ambition to be able to accomplish that, and that are willing to go through a journey. This is a hero's journey, you know. Just like any hero's journey, there is the beginning, there is the period of darkness, and then there is the end point and the overarching theme and moral of it. But I think we get too concerned with trying to get to the end that we don't understand that the most important part is the journey that gets us there. And so the obstacle is finding people that are willing to go through that journey, just like I did, just like many people before me did as well, to be able to get to the other side and enjoy with full understanding the fruits of that labor, right? The benefit of it, though, is the adventure that you get with it, right? I have my newest class right now. I have two people that just joined on, and both of them, they're younger ladies. They are both very excited, very willing to learn, and they're excited for the opportunity to take this adventure on. And when you find people like this that have the drive, have the determination, have the fearlessness to go talk with people, and the willingness to learn, man, you got an opportunity for greatness, man. Like this is like, that becomes the perfect recipe. And now it's my job to come in and be able to sprinkle that vision in there and be able to show the way, right? And it's times like that where it's just like, holy crap, like I have in my hands here the power to change the world, right? Because now I'm going to be able to teach these people how to build a life that's going to create for them financial freedom, wealth, beyond just the monetary aspect, and a livelihood that they're going to be proud of, And we get to talk with people that, we end up running through people, or not running through, but we end up working with and having people come in and out of our doors from all types of different backgrounds, right? People with college degrees, with bachelors, people with criminal backgrounds, people that have had no experience in sales, people that's all they've done. And it is amazing to watch as you see people that you would have pinned as just A+ perfect candidates, watch them, fall into a dumpster fire of madness, and you watch people that you almost would have just discounted and said, "Are you sure you don't want to try something different?" Just bloom into this amazing butterfly of just, I don't even know how to kind of follow that up. It's just this amazing transformation that you see them, I've watched my manager, my field manager, go from somebody who was a very introverted person and really didn't want to push like a conversation farther than what he felt was comfortable, to now he's leading and managing teams and training people how to knock doors and how to be fearless at the door. And it's like, bro, you remember like 3 months ago where I was just telling you, just knock on the door, and like, it's so fun to watch that, he actually just passed his first portion of his sales training, and the biggest joy really comes from that. It's like you get to see, and I'm like taking pictures, and we're all just like excited about it because it's a lot of work, and the obstacle is trying to figure out how to make that work. And the opportunity is when you see the formula coming together and you see it all working the way that you've been telling them that it's going to work. And I guess I akin it to the captain on a ship that feels like the whole ship feels like they're lost at sea, and you have like thunderstorms and you can't see anything. And what was it? Waterworld was the best one, right? And you got the guy up at the mast and he screams, "Land this way," right? And everybody just starts going that way. And somebody goes up, they're like, "Did you really see land?" He's like, "No, but they're going to be rowing for the next 3 weeks, because the vision has been brought to them, and that's the joy of working with people, but that's also the difficulty of working with people as well. So kind of a paradox.
So I feel like you're really good at sales. We're all in sales. Mm-hmm. If you're in business, one way or the other, you probably have experienced selling your own product.
Yeah.
And from what I know, I feel like if you believed in the product, it wouldn't have to be Windows. It could be different products, mm-hmm. but you would be able to kind of connect the customer to the product as long as you believe in the product. Am I kind of on the right track so far?
Yeah,
okay.
Completely.
So I would want to, if you can share mm-hmm. some tips or some tricks or anything that you've learned over the years, because you have a lot of experience in going up to somebody that don't have zero understanding of what LEI home enhancement is to getting them a new set of windows, or maybe now it might be solar. If there's anything that you can share that people might get something out of,
like kind of the process essentially, right?
Process, anything that that's something you had to overcome, because we're all in the business, mm-hmm. If you're self-employed or you're working anything.
Yeah. No, I mean, sales, one of the fun things about sales is once you realize, like you said, sales really is life, right? The definition of sales is the transference of enthusiasm from one person to the next. And once you understand that, you understand some of the secrets of interacting with people, right? For me, I think some of the biggest tips or some of the biggest things that I can say as far as my journey has been when I am stepping into my own genuine self. That is when I'm performing the best. For me, sales has never been about getting the contract. We have an understanding within our business. The owner of our company, although he's never been in the military, he lives and dies by acronyms like he was born and bred, right? And so one of the acronyms that we live by is WIT. It's whatever it takes, right? Whatever it takes to get the job done, whatever it takes to create the success. But that doesn't mean whatever it takes to get the contract sold. sold. This doesn't mean in the sense of, lie, cheat, scam, and, get one over on your customer. I think if anybody has had any experience with sales, one of the first things that most people think of is the used car salesman slapping their hand on the roof of the car saying, this baby right here will get you, wherever you need to go. And in all reality, it's barely going to get you off the lot, right? So when you're getting into a sales position, the most important thing is to understand that, when it comes to working with your customers, honesty is always the best policy, and working from a standpoint of serving your customers is the best and greatest thing that you can do as a sales rep. I know going into a house that there is a possibility that I'm walking out without a contract, and I'm totally okay with that, because my goal when I'm going into a home, when I'm talking with them about their home improvement projects for this point, isn't about me selling them the windows. It's about me figuring out how I can best help them in their situation. So I've had situations happen where, for example, a few weeks ago, I had a customer come out, or I went out to a customer's house, and after discussing with them their ins and outs of what their needs are, what they're looking at, and why they were interested in replacing windows, after looking at the project, I told them, I said, look, man, there's really only a few repairs that need to be done. Your money is best spent somewhere else. Let me recommend you a gentleman that might be able to help you better. And in that instant, it's one of those things where, I've had situations just like that where I've walked out almost kicking myself in the butt saying, man, I just left a sale on the table. But for myself, when it came down to it, there is an aspect of karma and an aspect of understanding that, small wins here and there, the easy wins actually equate to your destruction, right? Because it's a show of character, everything I do comes down to the character of the person that I am. And so when I'm working with people, I'm listening and I'm actively asking them questions about their issue, because what my goal is to figure out, number one, is my product going to be the resolution for their problems, right? And number two, is my product going to be within their financial ability to be able to accomplish as well? And so if I am in those abilities, or if I am within those realms, now it's a way for me to be able to figure out how I can pair this with them so that they identify with my product as their solution. One of the things that we talk about with our reps and with our marketing reps is, at the door, there are 7 different techniques that we give them as ways to build rapport. Building rapport is really about creating the connection with your customer and learning how you can best serve them, and being able to show them that you guys are more alike than different, right? If we build that connection, you and I, we no longer are the photographer, videographer, and window salesperson. We are Ken and Dustin, friends on these connections, right? Over the last 2 years, you and I have been able to get to know each other, and we know each other on a personal basis. And that allows us to be able to have different conversations and have different forms of trust, right? Now, if you were to have met me at the home show, our relationship would have been completely different, right? Because it's more of a professional situation. My object is to be able to take that professional relationship and turn it into a personal relationship, because I want to be able to help you, And so when it comes to my process, what I find my techniques that work really well is being able to tell stories, being able to create relatable experiences, and being able to do it in a way that is fun and entertaining. Sales is a high stress situation for the buyer and for the seller, right? As a seller, your stress is riding and dying on whether or not you make that contract close. I think most salespeople are operating on some kind of commission, right? I know for us, I've operated on commission only for 15 years. So, my performance and how well I can close those deals relies, and my livelihood rely very, very closely together. Now, where I was getting at that was that with the customer and with the buyers, their stress is different, because they feel like they're entering into an arena, whether it's at their house or at a dealership or otherwise, they're entering into an arena that they're not very skilled in. Even people that think that they're good hagglers, they still have a certain sense of panic or paranoia or anxiety about it, because we're about to talk about transferring a vast sum of money. So as a salesperson, my goal is to be able to lower that tension and be able to create an easy easygoing situation where I'm able to inform and educate my customers on, in this case, windows, right? Because for us, windows are more than just a window, or if it's in this context of a car, it's more than just 4 tires and a steering wheel, or in the context of real estate, this is more than 4 walls and a roof, right? And the goal is to be able to tell a story that involves the customer in their journey in terms of identifying those problems and creating that hero's journey with them, right? They've now identified the problems, they have their guide, and now we're going to show them and go through that entire process so we can get them through onto the other side. And the successful hero's journey in terms of the business transaction is the success of being able to successfully bring them through the darkness and into the light, and at the end of the tunnel is showing them the solution. And when we are able to do that, we're able to not only create a customer there, right? We follow through with our promises, we follow through on the commitments, and we provide them with a true home enhancement. That story doesn't end. None of our stories just end at that destination. It continues on. Our story continues on with their referrals, their family, their friends, their neighbors, their work colleagues, the people that they recommend to us, and then we take that hero's journey with them. And so when we look at the fact, and when I look at the fact that everything is interconnected, and when my goal is to be able to create that journey, that hero's journey with them, knowing that I may be on the other side with them, or I may direct them to the end of their hero's journey with somebody else, as long as I'm doing my part in that aspect, I know that going back to God is going to provide me with all of the success that I need to be able to create the life that He has destined for me. And so when I live in that kind of a situation, everything works out, So I don't know if that was the hard tips and tricks that you were looking for,
but that was the overview. Sure, yeah.
So
just like stick on this topic a little bit more.
Yeah.
When you're training someone and then they're getting beat up at this door.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting no after no after no and getting a lot of rejections. What do you how do you remotivate them, or how do you share your mindset so they can keep on going? Because sometimes it happens, right? You get no's in a row. It's part of the game. So how do you remotivate them?
Well, storytelling, right? I'm pretty good at telling stories, right? And that seems to be one of my strong suits. I take after those who have mentored me, and those who have mentored me, it's been an interesting journey, right? Because some of it has been unwilling mentorship, some of it has been very willing mentorship, but I've learned the most out of just watching how other people interact, right? I've watched how people have interacted with me, because I am definitely somebody that at any given point in time, I can lose my vision, I can lose my motivation, and I could feel like Chicken Little with the sky falling and everything crumbling underneath me, you know what I'm saying, or on top of me. And just like my mentors will do, is sit me down and look at the numbers and show me what I'm actually doing, as opposed to what the monsters in my head are telling me that are actually going on. And they redirect me and reground me, For me, that's the most important part, is being able to reground when my mind is taking me a million miles into the clouds. When I'm at the door with somebody, it's the same process, right? I have to basically do the same thing for them. We have to reground them into the vision of why we're out there in the first place, right? Because one day doesn't tell the full story. I mean, I can go out later on today and knock 100 doors and have nobody answer at all and go home with absolutely nothing. But that doesn't mean that the rest of my week is going to be that way, right? In order for me to not create the rest of the week like that, though, I have to instill the vision in myself as to what I'm doing. You look at it the same way as coaches and quarterbacks, right? Football or any kind of sport, right? They spend all week drilling, doing fundamentals, looking at practice films, looking at game films, and being able to envision what the next game is going to be like, because they want to be able to manifest the creation of that win, right? If we're not doing that actively, then we are going to fall prey to the randomness of everything that's happening. We will be a character in someone else's story if we're not the ones telling the story ourselves. And so when it comes to the issues of being at the door, especially in the first weeks, the whole goal is to be able to keep top of mind the vision of why we're out there, right? So we talk about at the very beginning in orientation, where do you see yourself within the LEI structure, right? And I spend a good portion of time talking about what the rewards and what it could mean to be at these positions. As a TSR, as a sales rep, if you're just doing the average, you can make $96,000 a year. And I break it down to them how easily that is accomplished. If you step it up and make 2 more sales a month, you get over 6 figures. If you make 2 more sales a month, you're making $150,000. Now, who doesn't want to make that kind of money? And you're telling, I'm talking to people, and when I was going through this, they're looking at it as like, you mean I don't have to have a college education? I don't have to do this, this, and this? And so it's really being able to create that vision and keep that vision sticking to them to be able to get to those wins, right? Because behind every single no is not just the no, it's one more step closer to the yes. And when we can keep that same mindset going door after door after door, eventually we understand that even a monkey with this script, right? If they just consistently hit doors, if they knock 20 doors, they're going to get 1 appointment, just saying it the way that we've told them to say it. And so we keep that vision going. We keep instilling them with motivation. We keep pumping them up. I tell them my stories and various adventures that I've had doing this. And man, I've had 7 years worth of door knocking. So I got quite a few adventures, you know what I'm saying? And then it comes down to, once we get that set, we celebrate it like it's the end of the freaking world, man. It is the most exciting thing that has ever occurred, because it is. You know what I'm saying? We just won. We won the day. We won the challenge. And we take that and we push it into the next one, and we celebrate and we celebrate and we focus on the wins.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. I'm gonna ask a simple question.
All right.
Close to the podcast.
The answer is C.
None of the above. Just very simply, like, what are you passionate about right now?
Man. Well, over the last hour, I think it easily shows my family is a big passion of mine. God and life are a big passion of mine. Winning the day. I mean, that's another good one, man.
I like that.
One of the big things that I've been realizing over the last, I'd say, couple of years is understanding that, my thought process and the way that I think and the way that I view the world, there are certain things that, ways to tweak out the way that I view it, to optimize it, to make life better in a sense, right? To become more present, right? And so my passion is really becoming a more whole and better person for myself and for the people around me. And so within that comes everything else, right? God, my family, my people, the people around me, everyday life, and it's just being a better person, So.
Amazing, Dustin. Thank you so much for sharing your stories with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.